Is hip-hop media just not worthy anymore?
Worthy of?
Of getting to have interviews with our favorite artists. Are the days of Ed Lover, Dr. Dre, Fab Five, Freddie, are the days are they over? Donnie Simpson, is it over? This is from a Punch tweet where Punch said, I gotta find it, but he said, basically, we're not sitting with y'all.
Like, yeah, I would think that...
This is coming off the heat of Kendrick doing the Harper Bazaar interview and him catching some flack for it being Harper Bazaar, and I guess
not a black outlet.
And Punch said that we done fucking with y'all, basically.
Punch tweet says, I respect hip-hop journalism and feel it's needed in its truest form. It helps keep the culture alive, but it's only a few real ones left. Most of you guys are trash, just my opinion. That's why artists don't want to talk to you.
I feel him.
That's what he said.
Would have been interesting if he said who he feels the real ones are that's left.
He went through it like on Twitter.
You're not going to do that because then you're going to negate other people that you might have.
He went through it on Twitter though, gave certain people they praises like.
That's what I mean. Like without saying who he thinks is shit, he could just say
who he thought was good,
holds in a high regard.
And the people that you don't.
There's so many. There'd be so many.
Mel just confusing rap rules. So she's rapped so much that she don't even know what is little bad.
What's snitching and what's not.
Yeah, that's sometimes you can rap.
And you got relationships with some of the niggas that you might think are trash.
Hold up. Sometimes you can rap by elimination.
J1, what did he say? Who did he highlight?
He didn't highlight one person specifically, but he did respond to one person and say, this is not in regard to them.
Eric Dieppe on Twitter said, just talked about Punch's tweet in therapy because it made me that upset. I think we need to start using this app for more positive conversations about rap journalism, like talking about our favorite pieces from this year or songs that we liked. It is so negative on here. Punch retweeted that and said, a couple of people sent me this post earlier and I thought about it. My comments made you so upset that you spoke with your therapist about it. Imagine what artists must go through when things are written about them.
He cleared the fuck out of him.
That's why my original post asked, is it okay to criticize the critics? End quote.
Oh, yo.
I fuck with him for that.
Oh, what?
I fuck with him.
What?
Talking to your therapist about
some
Twitter shit is...
That's some bitch shit.
If my post made you talk to a therapist, imagine what the artists are talking about in their therapy sessions. Mm-hmm. But when y'all say negative shit about them or when y'all critique them, I think that
this is a conversation usually had like amongst artists when they say like when they do their vlogs or whatever, like the critics or the blogs, they saying this and that, and then blogs will say, man, shut up, be an artist. But then you see the higher ups in the labels, the Punches, the other higher ups engaging. Now it's like y'all being harsh of us, but it's like, don't hold up the mirror if you can't look at the mirror yourself. So I feel totally how Punch feel.
And I think you're right. I think that nowadays anybody with a microphone in front of them thinks that they're a journalist, and that may not necessarily be true. Like journalists go to school.
99% of the time it's
journalists
not
go
true.
to school, dog. They learn techniques on how to interview. They learn techniques on how to write. They learn techniques on how to do certain shit from people that are. Some people just got it.
And they're also just creatives, by the way. Real journalists are creatives, and if I'm sitting down with Drake, I'm going to think of an angle to talk about things that he's not going to go
make it interesting.
Exactly.
We don't have to restrict this to journalists because he said hip-hop media, which is
podcast also.
That's true.
Just the journalists deal in facts. I don't.
But they don't necessarily either. They'll ask questions for engagement. You know what I'm saying? Like shit that they may not even know to be factual or know to be true. They'll take, like Park said, a certain angle to invoke shit out of the guest or the artist. Nowadays, everybody is just spewing gossip. You know what I'm saying? Or trying to be salacious, or because it's the internet generation, trying to get clicks. So it takes away from the necessary the integrity of journalism and media in itself.
A lot of it comes off disingenuine. Like we'll see oftentimes certain pods or radio hosts or journalists say, oh, this artist ain't do here, but you go through their timeline, they kick the artist back in for weeks, months. They shit on them. So I feel like it's really just a matter of niggas being mad. They're not getting certain interviews they feel they should get or are entitled to. And it's like, why do you feel you're entitled to this? Why are you more deserving than this person is?
I think the media space is just because niggas is monetizing it. that they just doing whatever they got to do to get clicks, and that don't necessarily be in the best interest of the artist.
That's a fact.
So I agree with him 1,000%, 1,000,000%.
I think it's a crock of shit.
What Punch said?
I think there's truth in it, but the truth is buried under the crock of shit. And I've had this talk with Punch before. So, I mean, I don't really feel the need to have it publicly. Well, let me see. Let me go to what
was some of the criticism that Kendrick received doing the Harper's Bazaar article?
The criticism was you keep talking this pro-blackity, blackity, blackity, black shit and how Drake is a culture vulture, and yet anytime you get a chance to represent culture, it's normally through a white outlet.
Didn't they try to criticize you too?
Well, they've done that forever, but for what?
They said you praised Kendrick for his interview and doing it, but you kicked Drake back in for going on the other side. So, like, they tried that with you also.
Oh, I saw them say that I kicked Drake's back in for doing the interview with Yachty.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah,
And they came for Hove too. With
yo,
people.
y'all idiots can't never speak for me. Y'all try your best because of that little AdSense check y'all get on the 21st. But y'all can't speak for me. My brain is way too warped, and I have way too many multiple personalities for any of y'all out there to just assume this is what Joe Budden was thinking. I absolutely love Drake sitting with Yachty during the interview. My disdain came from Yachty being allowed to go to the studio after that.
He did say that.
I said it then, I'll say it now. I love seeing peer-to-peer communication.
Yeah.
I don't need some of those peers in the studio while some of them are cooking up. I don't need that. As far as Kendrick goes, anything I say here, they're going to say I'm chasing an interview because I bigged Kendrick up for so long during the beef. I could give two fucks if Kendrick don't sit with me. And that's why I have a problem with what Punch is saying. When you say hip-hop media, there are way too many options to choose from for you to lump all of those people under one umbrella of, hey, y'all talk bad about the artist and the artists feel away, so they don't want to talk to you. That is a crock of shit. You can't tell me that. Now, many of us in hip-hop media choose to speak about you rather than to you because the gig is the gig. But where I come from, the hip-hop that I know, even those things led to more anticipation for an amazing interview, right?
Sure.
Like, when Chance came up here and did the pod, I was kicking Chance's back in for months.
True.
About that fake independent shit, about the 3 hats, about so many things. And he was listening. And he said, you know what? I'm going to face you. And we're going to have the discussion. And we did, and it was important at the time. Who else? Big Sean. When I sat with him, months before that, I was kicking his back in. I've had a lot of interviews where I was kicking somebody back in, and they came right to the smoke. Rather than say, hey, this person's been talking about me, and my feelings are hurt, so I don't want to go. I don't even like his point to Homeboy that had to go to therapy. Homeboy that had to go to therapy is a dude sitting at home somewhere who knows what he works and where he works and what his home life is like. He is not performing in front of millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people. He's not required to have the same tough skin that some of our entertainers are
Required to have.
But is that an unfair requirement? To Punch's point, is that an unfair requirement that these are still human beings, one, and just because my career puts me in front of 1 million people, that doesn't mean that I can be disrespected or I should be disrespected and just have to tolerate that.
But see, and that's where we conflate points. Yes, I agree with that. I also don't think everybody in hip-hop media kicked one person's back in. There are too many people in hip-hop media. Find the person that is true and aligns with whatever you're trying to do and talk to that person then. I just think it gets real murky when artists today won't sit with anybody.
I agree with that. And I said that about Harper's Bazaar. I said I thought it would have been a negative if they didn't let SZA interview him.
Okay.
I think that we basically beat the critique by allowing SZA to sit with Kendrick as opposed
I
to
agree
some
with that.
white media person or some white interviewer that fucking grew up in Connecticut. No disrespect to Connecticut.
And
but
it's,
you get my point.
and it's possible he wouldn't have done the interview if
That's a
SZA was
possibility.
the one
So
that
I
wasn't
didn't knock
conducting
that.
it.
I didn't knock that. But let's say this. Why couldn't we have SZA interview him for a black media publication?
Is it too much to assume that whatever mediation an artist does align with isn't getting the numbers or won't get the
possible.
response, and that's why they don't do it?
I mean, again,
But
that's
numbers
one of the
doesn't-
critiques.
But that's
That's a
part,
critique, though.
But that's part of. I want to focus on what you're saying because that's part of my critique, right? J1 is right. When you're talking about appealing to the masses and you're talking about stars and a certain level of audience, that includes white people.
True, 1000%.
Like if you're talking only blacks, then we're talking about playing with a quarter of the monopoly board.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not mad at that. But the same way that you go and speak to them, I think it should be equally as important to find the person in hip hop specific, not just black, hip hop media that you could sit with. I think if Kendrick never sits with anybody, we are well within our right to kick his fucking back in. I also don't see a world where Kendrick won't sit with a big boy or sit with a Sway or sit with, I don't see, he would, they have to show me that he won't do that for me to believe that. See, Drake, I know that about because of how he's going about interviews since that Elliott Wilson interview, how that interview went, how the interviews, like I know that about him now. Like even recently, not recently, but a few years ago, he tried to do some shit where all the media people come up here, we'll do the interviews, I edit it up, slice it up. No, nigga, no, this ain't going like that. I don't want to talk to nobody that ain't an interview.
True.
If you just gonna dictate the questions, the answers, the footage, and everything, then that don't count for shit. I think Punch is right that a lot of hip hop media is trash.
And I think,
But I think Homeboy is right. There's a lot that's great about hip hop media that's not highlighted by the people that we need it highlighted by, because y'all represent very sensitive artists, and y'all have to deal with very sensitive artists. I don't think that part is highlighted enough too. Like I'm sure that Punch and some other executives have stories upon stories upon stories about how they've had to walk an artist off the ledge because of something that I said or something that Axe said or something that somebody in hip-hop media said.
Definitely.
And when you on that side of it, why wouldn't you protect your artist by saying, no, we're not talking to nobody? And we don't need to.
true.
But I want to point that they don't need to. But, I mean, does it come with a certain optic? You fucking right it does.
Neutral Budden.